On this episode of Throwback Thursday, Dr. Thomas Lodi shares insights on your body and its miraculous healing power. Enjoy.
It will do it. Your body never makes mistakes. It's not stupid. It's of divine origin. It's a magical machine. You cut it and it heals, right? It's a healing, self-healing, incredible piece of biology. So that's the thing about disease. So we call them diseases as if they were third parties, entities that got into us, and we need to get rid of them. It's kind of a very primitive. It's almost like it's almost like an exorcism. Like I've got to get rid of this thing. Well, there's no thing in you. There's no place that you couldn't find the diabetes. It's not in your elbow and it's not in your nose. It's a systemic response to protect you from your habits. You change your habits, your body no longer needs to do that. So the same goes with cancer. So in other words, we know what cancer is. It's when cells lose the ability to use oxygen. Their mitochondria, which are these little organelles inside the cell that make energy, become defective. They become defective because of the multitude of toxicities, and including one of the number ones is stress, like you were referring to a moment ago. So stress basically stimulates cancer growth in multiple ways, biochemical ways that can be proven objectively, right? So you've got, and the way we turn off stress is by turning off our mind, and that's what meditation is. So meditation is learning how to shut up. It's learning how to not talk, how to not think, right? And by the way, if you ever think about it, the times in your life that you've been happiest is when you're not thinking. So if you're a surfer and you get up on the surfboard, you're not thinking. If you're a skier and you're skiing down the hill, you're not thinking. If you think, you'll run into a tree, right? So in other words, when you're dancing, when you're listening to music, you're in the moment. And that's when we're happy, when our mind is shut off. That's where we find bliss. So that's what meditation is. It's simply a technique, a tool to turn that off. And when you turn that off, you turn off stress. But anyway, we're being exposed through the food we eat, through the water we drink, through the air we breathe, the clothing we wear. All of these things, we're being exposed to toxins, and they all conspire along with stress to damage the mitochondria, and then the cell, to survive, starts to ferment. And that chronically fermenting cell is cancer. So if you can get rid of the toxins so that no longer starts happening, so you detox, you cleanse everything out, and now you eat foods that are real food. I mean, real food is food that grows. I mean, God made tomatoes, not tomato sauce. All right. So if you think about, and all creatures on the planet eat the food the way nature presents it to us. We're the only ones who take it from nature, bring it into the kitchen, which is like a laboratory. We heat it up, we bang, we pound on it, we heat it up, we mix it with this and this. It's a chemical experiment. When we come out with this thing, and it's no longer chemically the same as what grew on the vine. So now our body is not getting the nourishment it needs. That's why if you look around you, it's not difficult to see that we are a society of overfed and undernourished people. We're not getting the nourishment, and yet we're getting obese. And anyway, so you stop making cancer by not doing those things.
Let me ask you a question, because you mentioned the diabetes and the what happens when diabetic eats the sugar. How much in the methods that you use to help somebody, because it's really difficult to break a craving, like somebody who has a drink or somebody who smokes, or in this case somebody who likes sugar, because your body is telling you it wants it. And you're referencing how the body is responding instinctively to those diseases, or to the interference that's put inside the body when it begins responding in the other direction, or trying to create healing immediately. So can you share with me how you take a patient who has those issues and they're trying to heal themselves? Because the tipping point here is your mind has to be in control of this, because if your body keeps making the decision for you, the disease is most likely going to get worse. So how does the mind, and I mean, old school, we'd call it willpower, but what are the methods that you bring into play here?
You are listening to Leave Your Mark with your host, Vince Cortese. Leave Your Mark. Inspiring the world, one guest at a time.
Well, sadly and tragically, we human beings are pretty stupid. We have to get banged on the head pretty hard before we're going to change direction. So if you're living an unhealthy lifestyle, but you feel fine, you're not going to stop. You've got to be scared. Well, one of the best ways to scare someone is to tell them they have cancer. And the beauty about cancer, if there's anything beautiful about it at all, is that it's one of the few conditions where people stop negotiating. They'll say, oh, okay, stand on my head for 3 hours over here and then do what? They'll do whatever you say. If they have high blood pressure, diabetes, they're going to say, well, can I just do this? Well, can I just smoke on weekend? No. But when they have cancer, they're scared to death. And that fear, we can, instead of using that fear to coerce them into doing something like have a surgery and be disfigured, instead of doing that, we use that fear as a motivation to change their lifestyle. So they're willing to do it. That's the reason I love working with people with cancer, because they're willing and they're happy to make changes, because they know if they don't, they're going to die. So that's what us humans. So in that regard, you have to see that pain and suffering are really our friends, because they help us make the change. Otherwise, we're not going to make the change. So that's really what it takes. The other thing that I do is we have a course at our center. It's called the School of Life. We teach people what their body's made of, what it needs, what is food, what is not food, how to eat, how often to eat. So we teach them all the things that we never learned, and that is how to live a healthy life. So when you're living a healthy life, your body no longer needs to adapt, right? It's able to function in a condition that we call health. All right. So we teach people how to live a healthy life, and we can only do that with people who are scared to death, not that they're going to die. So now the other important thing that we do is by giving people this knowledge, right? Once they understand, then that also helps them, it inspires them to change. For example, you're told, you go to the oncologist, he says you're going to die in 3 months, blah, 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 blah. You come here and we say, no, your body's making 37 million new cells a second. So what you were last week is not what you are today. You're like a flame. A flame is not a static thing. It's streaming gases. It's a constant process. So what we want to do is you will not be, if you have a condition this year and you had that condition last year, it's because you're still producing it this year. So you don't have to continue to produce it. So it's actually a very empowering bit of information. So then what you shifts the control, because we relinquish control to doctors and saying, okay, you fix me, doc. It's like you're dropping your car off. You fix me. Well, They can't. They can't, because you're not broken, because your body's doing what it's designed to do.
Yeah.
And that is adapt. So what you do is instead of that, you put the responsibility and the power back to the person, and the person says, okay, I'm going to live a life that doesn't require an adaptive response called cancer. And so we see it all. I mean, if I could tell you stories of people who had 3 weeks to live, and I get postcards from them 8 years later while they're on vacation in Paris. So yeah, it doesn't, that whole paradigm, that whole conventional approach just simply doesn't work. And that's why, if you look at the mortality rates of cancer, 1950 compared to 2010, they're the same. They haven't changed. Okay, so the war on cancer is a failure. So you don't go to war against the body. That doesn't work.
All right. So now, did these people, when you're helping them move forward, how much in a detox then? So it's like this diabetic's not eating as much sugar. How do you manage them through the withdrawal? And probably a lot of the crazy thoughts that are going to creep in their head when they're not feeling so good because they're doing as they're told.
Well, they're in our center where everybody is doing the same thing. Everyone's positive. You're not outside driving past the McDonald's. You're not sitting around with your friends eating, cheeseburgers and donuts. You're not around that situation. You're around people eating healthy foods or drinking juices, and you're learning every day. You're in an environment of healing. So you're learning every day the value in this glass of fresh vegetable juice.